Fanatic Brackets Season 2, Episode 6. I am Nick, your host. With me, as always, is my co-host, Joel. Today, we got a special guest from the Wrestling Delorean Podcast. Please welcome Mike Dinero. Mike, how are you, man? How's everything?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing really good. I'm excited to be on. Been a fan of you guys for quite a while, so this is a long time coming.
We appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man.
Likewise.
Appreciate that.
Nah, I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, appreciate you. So, yes, you chose the topic for this month, which was the greatest ECW wrestler. You provided the participants as well. Was there any specific reason why you chose ECW wrestlers? And you don't have to go with the participants either, but the topic specifically.
Yeah, man. I growing up in the 90s, right? I was a huge ECW fan. I was probably like the only kid who got to stay up till like 1 o'clock in the morning and watch ECW on Monday nights. But I felt like I was the only kid at live ECW shows. You know, maybe that's not the best look on my parents, but it was awesome. I grew up on ECW, and it was always like my favorite show. I know my dad was a big WCW head. My mom actually was a big WWF fan, but I always loved ECW. So
you got a piece of everything then.
Yeah, exactly.
All the wrestling at once.
Yeah,
exactly. ECW always been near and dear to my heart, so I thought that this would be a cool bracket.
Yeah, nice. So yes, thank you for the topic as well and the participants. So the concept of the show, for those listening who have not heard of the Fanatic Brackets or listened to an episode before, we're gonna go matchup by matchup, giving our thoughts on who should move on to the next round. The person that gets 2 to 3 votes per matchup will move on to the next round, obviously between the three of us. The way we look at it, it's completely up to us. There's no specific way to do it. We could do it on impactful ECW wrestler, who was the better in-ring performer, who had the better accolades. Again, there's no specific way to look at it. It's our choice and our choice only. So that doesn't really matter in terms of that. But enough of me talking. Let's just get right into the bracket. Mike, since you're our guest, we're going to start off with you with the first matchup. In your opinion, who do you think was the better ECW wrestler, Shane Douglas or Terry Funk?
This is a tough one, man, right off the bat. I mean, shit, there wouldn't be ECW without Terry Funk or Shane Douglas. From Shane Douglas throwing down the NWA title and declaring himself ECW champion and that turning into Extreme Championship Wrestling. It's rough, but I'm going to have to go with Terry Funk. You know, Terry Funk at the time was that veteran who really put ECW on his back and made stars out of people like Shane Douglas. So I don't think that Shane Douglas would have been as big of a star if not a Terry Funk there to make him a megastar like he did. So I'm gonna go with Terry Funk.
Good pick. Joel, who would you go with, Shane Douglas or Terry Funk?
1,000% agree. Terry Funk. I love Shane Douglas. You know that, Nick. I will die on the hill for his character and how they just took it away from him. But that's another story. But Terry Funk did so much. As you said, he was the veteran, helping the young guys, putting them over, and also giving them that knowledge for them to take on for the rest of their wrestling career. So I think he was super impactful, and I think he had a bigger impact overall than Shane Douglas.
Yeah, I mean, just an FYI, 2 FYIs actually. Mike, there's going to be a lot of matchups in this bracket that are going to be tough, just like this one.
I see.
Yeah. You're going to come across that a lot, especially in the other rounds. But for me, someone who wasn't really a wrestling fan at that time when the old ECW was a thing, I was the newer ECW guy, which I don't know if I should be proud of that or like at all. But based on like
wear it on your chest, man.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good thing because people say
10 toes down.
Yeah. Ezekiel Jackson was my ECW champion. That's how bad it was.
Oh man,
yeah, that's kind of tough. That's kind of tough.
Yeah, I can't wear that proudly. But I hear and I've seen. I'm no stranger to their matches. I've seen a lot of stuff on YouTube and on Peacock. I think I've seen it on Peacock if it is on there. But YouTube has been free. I've seen a lot of their matches. I've seen a lot of promo work of theirs. Shane Douglas, from what I've watched of him, was always a great performer and a great talker on the mic. But I'm going to have to go with Terry Funk too, because, when you think of extreme wrestling, you think of Terry Funk.
True.
If you ask anybody currently that resembles that style of wrestling, they're going to tell you that Terry Funk was the inspiration. Especially around the time that he sadly passed last year, a lot of people were repping Terry Funk. and doing all these matches for him. And I think that he's one of the, I guess, Mount Rushmores of not just ECW but extreme wrestling in general.
Of course, yeah.
So without Terry Funk, there probably wouldn't be a lot of hardcore matches this day. And I know we said ECW, but a lot of his work outside in Ring of Honor and NWA and all of his other places that he's been with, he's a legend in the extreme world. And even when he got older, he still competed in the high level of extreme wrestling. So without Terry Funk, there wouldn't be extreme wrestling. So I'm going to have to go with Terry Funk too in that matchup. Clean sweep for Terry Funk.
Clean sweep.
Yeah, surprising.
Yeah, I thought one of you were going to choose Shane Douglas. So I'm like, all right.
I was close.
Yeah.
Close.
Shout out to the franchise, though. Yeah, I mean,
1,000%.
Yeah. I know, Joel. I think you said Triple H and Shane Douglas resembled. The whole story.
I'll die on that hill.
Yeah.
I've been saying that for a long time too. A lot of the early Triple H, the game character, was taken from the franchise for sure.
Most definitely.
The
down to the hat. Remember the little
hat,
leather,
the backward.
Yeah.
Yo.
Come on.
How you steal fashion style? I understand character style, but how you gonna take
the jean jacket
style
also his too, or is that Triple H's?
That's Triple H's.
Yeah. Okay. He had to change it up somehow.
Yeah.
Let's add something different to make it original. But yeah, Terry Funk surprisingly sweeps Shane Douglas in that matchup. Joel, I'm going to start with you with this next round. Who do you think is the better wrestler between Mike Awesome and Lance Storm?
So I have Mike Awesome taking this one. I know he was in and out a lot in ECW. It's kind of tough figuring out when he was there, when he wasn't, because there was some years that he was there for a couple months and then jumped ship or went somewhere else or went to Japan. But overall, just the title reigns he had over there were amazing. Even though kind of fucked him over at the end, had to kind of drop it at a house show and stuff like that. But I say all that just to say I think Lance Storm really hit his stride in WCW. I know he did have a lot of impact, especially teaming with Just Incredible, and that was really great, like very entertaining television. But I feel like he didn't hit his stride till WCW. I feel like unless you were like a real ECW fan, it kind of goes under the radar with Lance Storm. So that's why I picked Mike Awesome.
That's what I was gonna say with Lance Storm, because I feel like a lot of people recognize him outside of ECW in different promotions.
Yeah.
But Mike, who do you have, Mike Awesome or Lance Storm?
I couldn't agree more. I'm going with Mike Awesome. His title reign in ECW, he looked like an absolute monster. This guy was coming into a promotion where, people weren't always in like the best shape in ECW. And you have this guy 6'6", looking like the Incredible Hulk. And then he's doing moves like springboards. And I mean, for anybody who wants to know how good Mike Awesome is, because I know when he went to WCW, they really messed up his gimmick with the whole that 70s guy and the fat chick Thriller and all that other shit. And he didn't really do much in WWE. But if you want to know how good Mike Awesome is, go check out his matches with Masato Tanaka in 1998 and 99. Some of the most classic ECW world title matches that you'd see. Lance Storm, though, I mean, great wrestler in ECW, definitely a part of some big storylines when he was in the Triple Threat teaming with Candido, and then Impact Players teaming with Just Incredible. But yeah, I don't think that he really became that main event star until he left ECW. So, I mean, if he would have stayed in ECW, I could have seen him, getting to that level like a Jerry Lynn or a Steve Corino, where they were given a title to, really run with. Lance Storm never really got that in ECW. He was at most just a tag team wrestler in ECW a lot of the time. So I gotta go with Mike Awesome for just how much of an impact he had on ECW.
Okay, good pick. I think we're gonna do another clean sweep here because, again, this is two people that I have to look up and watch and analyze their work. For someone who was 6'6" and mobile for his height and his size, he kind of reminded me a little bit of Brock Lesnar during Brock's early 2000 days. Someone who was able to move for someone that big of a size. So that really impressed me with his in-ring workability. Lance Storm was a great wrestler, but again, like I said before, I feel like a lot of people had known Lance Storm outside of ECW. That's where I heard of Lance Storm. I didn't even know he was in ECW until like a couple years ago. So I'm just gonna be biased and say that Mike Awesome. No pun intended, but it's awesome. He's awesome in the ring. So for me, I'm gonna have to go with Mike Awesome. Another clean sweep for that one.
Clean sweep, back to back.
Nice.
I hope it doesn't continue, but we shall see. I'm gonna start the next round anyways. Just we have Taz versus Raven. I'm gonna have to choose Taz for this one personally, because I feel like someone who was much smaller of a guy but big for his size, like muscular wise. There's a reason he's called the suplex machine, because the human suplex machine, because he was able to pull off suplexes so smoothly. And again, for someone his size to be able to pick up and look as dominant as he was in the ring, like that style of wrestling, I don't know how to describe it. It's just very, very unique in a way, where like you don't really see that much of that style of build in today's wrestling. And you definitely see a lot of bigger guys try to push for the tall, like 6 foot something, 300, 200-pound guy nowadays. But for someone like Taz to be looking as dominant as he was, it was very impressive to see, and to see in that type of type of setting in ECW, and even during his WWE days, even though it was kind of brief, he was more of a commentator role there. But I feel like Taz was just an awesome wrestler, very talented, very unique, very different, is what I should say, for that time of wrestling. So I'm going to have to go with Taz for that one. Joel, who do you have, Taz or Raven? Tough one for you, right? You're a fan of both of these guys. Yeah, you're a fan of both of these guys.
Raven's up there for me. But Raven, what happened with Raven, I feel like he left too early. I think he jumped ship too early. He didn't have the impact that Taz had. Taz was putting the company on his back. He was that guy. He was that guy that if you needed a good storyline, you go to Taz. Him and Tommy were those two guys in ECW. Kind of how like they have a Mox and a Rollins today. Those are the go-to guys. You need a good storyline, you go to them. And again, Taz, being the size he is and being one of the top guys, maybe at that time, probably the smallest guys out of any of the companies. And he was holding world championships. He was creating his own championships.
And his I mean to cut you off, but his aura too was different. It was like he came out with that towel over his head.
Mm-hmm.
The song alone.
Yeah.
The song alone. Why would you even want to start a fight with this guy?
And
then the matches of him and Awesome, him and Sabu, him and Bam Bam. Shout out Bam Bam. I feel like he don't get the love he deserves. But Taz he was the guy. Like when I think of ECW, it's Terry Funk, Taz, Raven, Dreamer. Those are the guys. Taz is a big role in that because of not only making the strides he did as being the small guy that was winning championships and just throwing people around, guys that were huge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh man, I'm forgetting the guy's name, 911. And he suplexed him. He shouldn't be able to do that and make it look easy.
Didn't he wasn't suplex Bam Bam into the ring at one point?
Yeah,
they went through the ring,
and then there was the stage one too, also, right? But I think that was just a drop back though. But Taz is the man. So I love Raven, but Taz is ECW.
Yeah, and I know I said before that like there's no one really like him. I guess you could say Hook is kind of like that, but Hook's not really built like Taz.
There's no one that's like running wild like that though, because Taz was just the towel on his head coming in with his security team. Like he was different.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like holding back.
Exactly.
Mike, who do you have, Taz or Raven?
Oh man, this might be one of the toughest ones. See, Raven, I was always captivated by Raven's character, and the storylines that he had in ECW were things I would, I'd never seen before. We had kidnappings and abductions and crucifixions and just everything. Like you didn't know what to expect from Raven, and Raven always kept it interesting because he always pulled out something different. But like Joel said, I don't think Raven spent enough time in ECW. He left really early. The company started to really get hot in 97, which is also the same year that Raven left. So, and then he came back, but it was towards the tail end after, a lot of the top guys were starting to leave, like the Dudleys and Taz already left. But that whole time holding it down was Taz. And like you guys said, Taz had a different aura. Excuse me. During the 90s, you had like the beginning of the UFC and like that Ultimate Fight style, and people were really intrigued by like Ultimate Fighting and MMA. And here's Taz, a guy who was, suplexing people, choking people out, and really bringing like that Ultimate Fight style to professional wrestling. And something cool about Taz too is Taz was calling out people during their matches, calling out people from other companies too. I remember seeing the matchup. I forgot who it was, but Taz is like hitting somebody with cross faces and then just looks into the camera and is like, Goldberg, come to ECW, get some of this. Hey, Austin, come get some of this in ECW. So like Taz just had that like the real fuck the world mentality, which was perfect because he created the FTW title. I think that Taz is more key to ECW surviving during their hottest period, where Raven may be one of the best characters in ECW history, but definitely wasn't there for the top years for ECW. We didn't have Raven on ECW pay-per-views because most of the pay-per-views were after Raven left. So, gotta go with Taz. We got another clean sweep.
Ooh. Damn. Hate to see it happen like that, but it had to happen.
It had to happen. I know. Against anybody else, I think Raven advances. I gotta be honest.
Yeah. He puts up a better fight against other people, but Taz, it's Taz, man.
Yeah. I mean, it feels so weird how different it was when you went to WWE, you immediately become a commentator. It's like it felt like two different people. The wrestler and Taz, the commentator.
Yeah, it was bad.
It was a lot of hope for Taz.
Yeah,
it was a lot of hope for Taz. His debut against Kurt Angle, I was there at the Garden, right? That crowd was going nuts. To be at. Like, come on, man. Like, how do you mess that up? Like, you had it right there. You had a top main eventer right there from the very start, and then that was it. That was the highest he got.
I think he was meant for ECW because I don't know how Taz would have worked in WWE. Like, to look back on it, it's like, it was a cool debut, but it was like, I don't know. You didn't really see that type of wrestler in WWE. Yeah, you have dark characters and strong, physically strong people in the ring, but be someone like Taz, there wasn't no one like that. So I don't know how the fans for WWE would have, reacted to it.
I think it was a victim of just the time period. If Taz debuted today, like I think it would be, he would have flourished. Especially now you have like smaller guys and more in-ring based wrestlers. I think he would have flourished in WWE for sure if it was today.
Oh, of course. He would have been dominant today for sure. But at that time, it was like, I don't know. So it definitely did drop the ball.
It wasn't a lot of small guys. If you think about Rock, Undertaker, Austin, you could do it, but you gotta work hard at making Taz believable to the WWF fan base.
Exactly. But yeah, Taz, another clean sweep. He moves on to the next round. Mike, we're gonna start with this with you for this next round. We have Rhino or Tommy Dreamer. Who do you think was the better ECW wrestler?
Well, Rhino, Rhino is the last ECW world champion, last ECW television champion. Really came towards the later years, right? Sorry, I know Ezekiel Jackson was technically, but the last real ECW champion was Rhino.
Yeah.
Came towards the later years. I believe he debuted around like 99. But Tommy Dreamer is the heart and soul of ECW. There is no ECW without Tommy Dreamer. The only guy who stuck it throughout all the hard times. You look at all the top guys in ECW: Sandman, Raven, Taz, Dudley's, Funk. They all left. And Tommy Dreamer was the only guy who stayed the whole time, all the way to the last show. That's definitely dedication, and he is the heart and soul of ECW. I don't think you talk about ECW in the realm that we talk about it if there's no Tommy Dreamer. So Tommy Dreamer, 100%.
I 100% agree. I feel like I'm going to go with Tommy Dreamer as well. I think Tommy Dreamer, you could also consider him one of the OG Paul Heyman guys, but without them being paired together on TV in a way. He is on the ECW Mount Rushmore. Again, when you think of ECW, you think of Tommy Dreamer because that's what he represented. He was super loyal to that company. He's, again, one of Paul Heyman's guys. Paul Heyman will die on the hill saying that Tommy Dreamer was one of the best ECW wrestlers there was during his time. And almost every single interview I've seen of Paul Heyman, he talks super, super highly of Tommy Dreamer. Even when they rebranded that ECW for WWE's ECW, he stuck by ECW till the very, very end. Yeah. So the fact that he stayed through that type of ECW shows a lot of his character. He may not have been one of the greatest, wrestlers there was. You could say he was. I'm not saying he isn't, but he was super loyal. People loved him on screen, and he embodied extreme wrestling. So for that, I'm going to have to say Tommy Dreamer. Joel, is it a clean sweep, or are you going to choose Rhino?
It's going to be a clean sweep. It really shouldn't, especially for the WWF hardcore belt Tommy Dreamer's running around with. I should really take this vote away from him, but I'm going to give it a clean sweep. You guys said everything. He is the heart and soul of ECW. Like Mike said, till the last day, even when Paul wasn't showing up the last couple of the shows, he took over. He was the one running the show. So that was, even though it was Paul's baby, it became Tommy's baby. And he took care of it till the day it went down.
Yeah. No, shout out to Rhino. I love Rhino. Again, kind of similar to what I said with Taz, one of impressive smaller powerhouses. You can see, one of the best spears you can see in wrestling.
Hey, it was a gore, okay? You gotta take it easy.
Yeah, gore.
Take it easy, Nick. It's a gore, okay? It's different.
Sorry. I'm just saying spear, but gore. One of the best gores you'll see in the business.
There we go.
But yeah, I love Rhino's in-ring ability, but Tommy Dreamer is Tommy Dreamer. He is ECW. Yeah. He is ECW. So 4 clean sweeps in a row. Can we change that the next matchup?
The second round was looking tough already. I shouldn't look ahead, but I'm just like, damn.
Yeah. Next matchup, we have Steve Corino taking on the Sandman. Joel, what do you think is better between the two? Because I know Steve's your guy, right?
Steve is my guy. I love the Sandman though, but I'm gonna give it to Steve. I'm gonna give it to Steve because in the later days he was coming into his own, and I think if ECW stood around for a couple more years, I think he was gonna be the face of the company. He was on his way doing that. Even during the last couple of years of ECW, he was putting on great matches. I think he was the only match that was Dusty's match in ECW, right? Yeah. That was his only match in ECW against Corino. I always looked at Corino, like when Adam Cole debuted, I was like, Steve Corino is 100% influence. Like, even though he doesn't get the love, that's definitely a Steve Corino guy. And like I said, I think he would have became I hate to say that's like, if it would have happened, but I gotta put Steve at least give him this vote.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't Steve also a coach in NXT for a bit too?
Yeah, he still is.
Yes,
he still is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still is.
So I can see why Adam Cole can be like an influence in his ring ability. But for me, I'll this next one, but I'm gonna have to go with the Sandman for me personally. Because I feel like with Sandman, similar to what I said with Taz, he had that aura to him. Every time he came out to the ring through the crowd will go crazy to the ring. Also someone that embodies ECW. For me personally, I mean, it may be different for everybody. He would be on the ECW Mount Rushmore. Also one of, if not the best babyface in ECW. I know that wasn't really a thing for ECW, who was like babyfaces or heels, but people loved it. People always did the beer bottles to him. The Enter Sandman theme song was catchy and always attached to him. Outside of maybe Mariano Rivera, you think of the Sandman wrestler when you hear that song. Yeah. So there's so much that's attached to him. But again, people may get influence off of Steve Corino, but I feel like Sandman had a more impactful run and memorable run than Steve Corino. So I got to go with Sandman to tie it up. Mike, you're gonna have to do the tiebreaker here, the first one of the night. Who do you have, Steve Corino or Sandman?
So I agree with both of you guys, right? I had a couple interactions like personally with Steve Corino, and Steve Corino is always going to be cool in my book. And not only that, but Steve Corino was going to be the face of ECW if it continued. Here's a guy who was in the main events towards the end, like Joel said, wrestling legends like Dusty Rhodes, who at that point wasn't really putting on matches so often. But when it comes to what embodies ECW, I feel like the Sandman was like that perfect embodiment of ECW. Here's a guy who was like a representative of the fans, just people who went there looking for violence. And Sandman was not the best wrestler in the world by any means, but just the aura, the song, the entrance, the beer cans to the forehead before the matchup starts. I feel like it's hard to talk about, just like Tommy Dreamer, it's hard to talk about ECW without thinking about the Sandman. Multi-time world champion. If you want to, just go stats wise, he's a multi-time world champion. I believe it was 3 or 4 times he won it, where Steve Corino won it just 1 time. But yeah, I think that there's no ECW without someone like the Sandman. He played that perfect heel in the early days of ECW. And then from like 95, 96, like he was able to really show you other sides of him, like the emotional side of the Sandman when he was feuding with Raven. And then from there, he just became like a cult favorite. I know he left and had his little time in WCW, but I still to this day think that one of the greatest moments in ECW history was the night the Sandman returned. I posted it on my Instagram like a couple months ago. That was the loudest pop in the ECW arena ever. Like that was a huge moment when Sandman returned to ECW. I gotta go with Sandman.
Yeah, I feel like he always got big pops in the ring. Yeah. I feel a lot of the times I've seen tons of videos, all of his matches. And
well, man, have you seen the video of him returning? I believe in '99.
I don't think so, but if I probably
that's the video I put up on the Instagram. Go check it out afterwards.
Yeah, you gotta peep that.
God, that crowd was going crazy.
Just that alone. That is the Sandman. That's the only clip you need to see of him.
Lights out and then lights go back on, and it's not even like he's just standing in the ring. It's not like he's standing like at the entranceway. Like lights go back on, and like you have to go find him. He's like all the way in the back of the arena. Just throws up the cane, and the crowd goes insane. Amazing moment.
He's always been a fan of Raven in ECW, and that's why. Even though again I wasn't really around watching, but looking back at the videos, like damn, this is like so awesome to see someone like that lovable. Even though he wasn't great in the ring, it was just his presence made everyone so happy, and it was
he was a fan favorite.
Yeah. So shout out to Sandman because even to this day people still love him. People still as wild, maybe not in the ring, but kind of similar.
All you need him to do is pop up at indie show and see how people react. People love him.
Yeah. You hear the song and it's him.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Thank God he changed his gimmick. Gosh, if you guys see the early Sandman where he was supposed to be like a beach bum and wore like a wetsuit and came out with a surfboard, thank God he changed his gimmick.
God,
that would not have gone well. Oh God,
yeah, I don't think that would have went well.
Yeah. Oh man, but yeah, Sandman will advance to the next round. Next matchup we have Justin Credible versus Chris Candido. Mike, we're going to start with you with this one. Who do you have, Justin Credible or Chris Candido?
This one's tough. Chris Candido is a guy who was around in other companies. He was in WWE for a short period. I forgot I think his name was Skip or something. He was in the Body Donnas with Sonny. He was in WCW for a short period. He had other runs in like the Indies. He did TNA. He was in XPW, but Chris Candido in ECW was someone who brought something different, especially when you had a lot of like wild hardcore brawls. Chris Candido was just a great wrestler. And not only that, like he had a great character too. He was always intriguing on the mic, was able to bring comedy in. He was very underrated. I still say to this day, Chris Candido is one of the most underrated wrestlers. I look at guys like MJF and I see a lot of Candido in MJF. It's hard to say because on the other end, you have Justin Credible, who was a part of some of the top storylines in ECW. He had his run at the top as a champion. He had his feud against the likes of Dreamer and Sandman. He was one of the top tag teams, the Impact Players. So this one might be the toughest one where it comes to like two really underrated wrestlers, but I always had a soft spot for Chris Candido just because I was such a huge fan of the Triple Threat. I was a huge fan of what he brought to, ECW, which was something different. I loved his run in his tag team with Lance Storm, because what it was two guys who did not get along, and every single time they had a tag match, they'd be fighting with each other and out of spite try to screw the other guy up, but it was just intriguing because they always end up winning the match anyway. So they were like one of the longest reigning tag team champions in ECW, and they never got along, which was like a cool storyline to do. But yeah, I'm going with Candido just because I always thought of him as one of the most underrated wrestlers.
Okay. I'm gonna go with me personally, just incredible. I've seen of his matches, the matches that I've seen were one with Jerry Lynn, the one with who did I see? I think it was the match against Rob Van Dam. Seems to be a better in-ring performer to me. And again, like I wasn't watching ECW, so I don't know like the impact he had weekly or however often they did their shows. But he seemed like he could have been their top guy if it was pushed right. I think he was not a champion for them for a while, or didn't win as many titles with them. I could be wrong.
Yeah, he was world champion. He was their top heel for a while, like late 98, early 99. He was like their top heel.
Was he a multi-time world champion, or was
one-time world champion, but was always around that main event scene from 99, 2000, and leading to towards the end. Just Incredible was always in that main event scene.
Yeah, but I wish he did have more of an opportunity for the title. But he did resemble that hardcore styled wrestling, which is no pun intended, but it's extreme. You know what I mean? And he gives off that I don't know. He was just more entertaining and more eye-catching in the ring than Chris Candido. Again, I haven't really seen anything besides matches, so I can't really base it off of anything else besides the fact that I like Incredible's in-ring experience between the two. So that's really all I can say off of just Incredible. But yeah, so I'm just going to choose Incredible because of that, of how I just enjoyed his in-ring work. Joel, who would you say was better between the two, Just Incredible or Chris Candido?
Shout out Just Incredible. Shout out what he did. His title run, his tag team title run. He was one of those top guys, like Mike said, at the end of the ECW run. But he was putting on great matches, great feuds. But Chris Candido played an important role. He was part of that crew. Kind of like how I always resemble it to TNA, how TNA had the X divisions to make things more exciting. ECW had their group of guys to calm stuff down a little bit with the weapons, but still gave you an exciting match. So I always put him in that categories with the Jerry Lynn's and the RVDs. He was there to break up the show a little bit. I think if he would have gotten more of a chance, like I say, I guess he's in that boat with a Steve Corino. If ECW went longer, he would probably had more chances at the belts and had more reigns and probably become one of their top guys, probably one of the top 3 top guys in that company. But I think I'm going to give this to Candido strictly off of just being able to break up the shows like that, being a fan favorite, but also the fans hated him, but they respected him because he was a great wrestler. He knew how to get under people's skins and promos. When he was with Triple Threat, underrated faction, by the way. When people talk about factions, no one talks about Triple Threat. And another one is, I know we're not talking about WCW, but The Flock. The Flock gets no love. Those two groups are probably the two most underrated factions in WWE, in wrestling history. But I think it's in that era of the NWO DX era that no one was showing too much love to anybody else but those two big factions.
They got overshadowed for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I think
MLW today, or is that something completely different?
Wait, say that again.
The Flock, isn't that in MLW right now?
Yeah. So he has different variations. Yeah.
Okay.
Throughout the years, but yeah, those are two. Like I said, another group that was just overlooked and didn't get the amount of love, but they were a great faction, and that's why I gotta give it to Chris Candido.
Okay, good choice. At least back to back.
Not getting sweeps. Yeah, no sweeps. No sweeps right now.
We're getting better. We're getting better with it. Next matchup. This might be a great one too. Before the next one,
this is tough.
Yeah, we got Bam Bam Bigelow versus Sabu. I'm going to kick this one off. Sabu, both of these guys actually are pretty intimidating if you look at them. Like Bam Bam Bigelow was like 6'3", 6'4", like 200 something, maybe 300 pounds. Maybe even more than that. Maybe almost 400.
Boy.
Yeah, he was a big boy.
Big boy.
You look at him, the tattoos on his head, it's pretty fucking scary.
Word.
Yeah, yeah. But then you look at Sabu's in-ring work, and it's like, Jesus, this guy can fucking go. Jumping off ladders, jumping over chairs, jumping over the ring. This guy didn't really care, you know what I mean? And I know I sound like a broken record, but this guy also resembles ECW. He's extreme. And even it translated over in WWE when he got there. His style of work didn't change much. It wasn't like Vince asked him, like, yeah, you can't do that extreme stuff anymore. He kept going for that for a bit. And it seemed like the ECW didn't die out in him. So for that, I'm gonna go with Sabu. I love Bam Bam. He was someone who was also mobile for someone his size, and someone who was intimidating. But Sabu kept the ECW, kept the extreme in him for a while after ECW was done. And even after, didn't he compete more outside of WWE and after he left WWE? So pretty much all of his matches were just as badass as the one before. And he kept on going until he got older. So shout out to Sabu for never letting the ECW die out in him.
Yeah, he needs to chill at this age.
Yeah.
He needs to take it easy.
And he's still
I love
going,
Sabu, but take it easy. He's still going.
He's like 60 right now.
He just got like a hip replacement. You would think that just to be living comfortably now, but no, it's just so he could get back in the ring. It's insane.
So you can have a comeback. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's insane. Mike, who do you have? Bam Bam Bigelow or Sabu?
This one's tough too because I am a huge Bam Bam Bigelow fan, like especially his ECW run. Before that, like he was a big star in WWE. He had that main event at WrestleMania with Lawrence Taylor, which was cool. But like Bam Bam really showed what he could do in ECW. He had some great feuds with Taz. He had, great matches. I still love that November to Remember 1997 main event in Pittsburgh with Shane Douglas versus Bam Bam and the triple threat imploding. And, that main event was huge. I think it was like one of the biggest like box office main events for ECW at that time. But I mean, just like the Sandman, I got to say, Sabu really embodies ECW. When you think of ECW, you got to think of someone like Sabu. Here's a guy who, was very different at the time. He was the originator of tables. The Dudleys would say when you think of tables, they got that idea of, incorporating tables in matches from Sabu. And like you said, Nick, some of the things he would do, like, jumping off the chair to the top rope and then diving outside, like just crazy shit that he still does to this day. Sabu was like nothing I ever seen before. So I got to go with Sabu. He was an absolute legend on the Mount Rushmore for ECW without a doubt.
Yeah.
You look at moments like, Born to be Wired, Sabu and Terry Funk, the barbed wire match where he tears his bicep and tapes it shut. He asks for tape, tapes his bicep shut while it's gushing blood and continues the match. Like stuff like that is what ECW's spirit was all about. So I got to go with Sabu. But that's no disrespect to Bam Bam because I'm a huge Bam Bam Bigelow fan.
Yeah. Joel, who do you have?
I love Bam Bam. He's one of my favorites, but you got to go with Sabu. Like every example you guys gave, he embodies ECW. You think of ECW, you think of Sabu. He's on that Mount Rushmore. Also, that match against Terry Funk was my first ever ECW match I watched. I got the DVD of the ECW's bloodiest matches, and that's how they kick it off. They kick it off with that him closing his biceps shut, and ever since then I was
what an introduction.
So I have to give it to Sabu.
Yeah, good choice. Next round, this is a tough one. Jerry Lynn going up against RVD. Mike, we're gonna start with you with this one. Who do you think was the better ECW wrestler, Jerry Lynn or RVD?
When you think of ECW, you think of Jerry Lynn and RVD, one of the best feuds in ECW history. The last match on ECW pay-per-view was Jerry Lynn and RVD at Guilty as Charged, another show that I was at. I think I was the only child that was there. I was looked at very weird by a lot of people, but yeah,
I don't know if you're allowed to be here.
That's sick.
But yeah, I don't think you could really argue that Rob Van Dam was the bigger star in ECW. That TV title reign going almost 2 years was a legendary title reign. You know, a lot of people talk about, I said this on the Wrestling Delorean many times. When you look at someone like Roman Reigns going 1,000 days on weekly television, like the blueprint for that was Rob Van Dam in ECW as your TV champion. He really showed that you could have weekly, you know, episodic television and have a title on one person for almost 2 years. So I got to go with Rob Van Dam. He's another guy who was there to the last show. He was a guy who was different, especially at the time. We didn't see stuff like Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam was a perfect embodiment of someone who was just cool, laid back, and mellow, but then will go in there and like kick your fucking head off. Yeah. Like I loved RVD. I also think that the best RVD that we ever got to see was his time in ECW, because that's when he had the handcuffs off and he was, you know, able to do what he could do to his fullest potential. I gotta go Rob Van Dam. And that's, once again, no disrespect to Jerry Lynn, because against anybody else, I think Jerry Lynn might take this. He's another former ECW world champion. Rob Van Dam was never even ECW world champion, right? Jerry Lynn was a former world champion. I just don't think that his legacy in ECW can match Rob Van Dam's.
Yeah, good pick. Joel, who do you have, Jerry Lynn or RVD?
I mean, Mike said it all. It's RVD, man. I couldn't agree more. It makes so much sense to give this to RVD. But again, shout out to Jerry Lynn, because without Jerry Lynn, we wouldn't have gotten RVD pushed to those heights without him. Because if you watch their matches, it just gets better one after the other. You keep watching their matches together and their chemistry just starts working so much better. As you heard, they closed the last pay-per-view. Like, to close the show, that was incredible, and one of my favorite matches. That's one of my favorite feuds from ECW, like right after Raven and Tommy.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to RVD too. I mean, he's the whole effing show for a reason. Everywhere he went, he was always the household name. Even though he made a name for himself in ECW, to getting his traction with WWE, WF, TNA. Everywhere he went, he was the whole effing show. But his charisma, his high flying moves, you know, his in-ring ability, was just something that was very captivating and got the attention from all the fans. So again, someone else, again, I don't want to like a broken record, but someone who embodied ECW was RVD, one of Paul Heyman's guys. That will stick behind him, and RVD will stick behind Paul Heyman. So yeah, RVD gets the clean sweep at that one. That one's no question. Now we move on to the second round.
Here we go.
This is where it gets even tougher than the first round. We're gonna start off with the first round. Obviously, Terry Funk versus Mike Awesome. Who wants to start this one off? Between the two. This is gonna be a tough one.
I want to fight to go first for this.
Yeah. Mike, you want to go? Mike.
Yeah,
Mike, you're our guest. I'll let you kick it.
Yeah. This is really tough. You know, like I said, Mike Awesome had one of the best ECW title reigns. Terry Funk was the veteran who really put ECW on his back. These two actually had some good matches back in FMW in Japan. If you go check out the Gladiator versus Terry Funk, that was some good shit. But I gotta go Terry Funk also, just for the fact that when you think of ECW, unfortunately, you got that black eye on Mike Awesome where he left with the belt and was going to throw the ECW title in the garbage on Nitro. So if you were talking about just ECW alone, we got to go with Terry Funk, because Terry Funk was ECW through and through. You know, he went to other companies. He was in WWF during the 90s where ECW was still going on. He was in WCW, but he never disrespected ECW, kind of like Mike Awesome did. So unfortunately for that, got to go with Terry Funk. But gosh, this is rough because I'm a huge Mike Awesome fan. Don't want to see him eliminated, but going with Funk.
I'm glad to agree with you there, but unfortunately, Mike Awesome will have to get eliminated on this one, because I do want to choose Terry Funk. You know, again, like I said in the first round, someone who was a legend in the extreme wrestling space, even if it wasn't in ECW. People who will create matches for him, you know, who say that Terry Funk inspired them to get into the extreme or hardcore wrestling business. And they steal a lot of moves from him. Not steal, but like, you know, they get inspiration from him. So, for someone who was able to have that impact for so many years, and for someone else too, I think Terry Funk wrestled for a while before he passed. You know, for someone to be able to go many, many years and didn't lose touch in wrestling, and to compete on a high level at such a older age, you got to give a lot of props to him. Mike Awesome was a great wrestler from what I've seen of him, and I loved his in-ring ability, but nothing will compare to the impact of Terry Funk. So I'm gonna have to go with Terry Funk on this one. Joel, who do you have? Terry Funk? Please sweep Mike Awesome.
It's Terry Funk, man. I love Mike, but like I said, he was in and out too much for me. And Terry Funk, like, even though he went other places after, he never put his body on the line the same way he did in ECW. Like, you knew he cared about ECW. Like, we were talking about Sabu and him in the Barbed Wire Heaven match. That right there shows alone how much he cared about ECW.
Yeah.
Main eventing the first pay-per-view and then having 2 matches that night, going through all that and then having to fight a fresh Raven and have Raven just throw him around. That's ridiculous. Yeah, Terry Funk, come on.
The legend Terry Funk. Now the rounds get harder and harder. This next one is so tough to even think about. Taz versus Tommy Dreamer. I'm gonna skip this one off. I'm gonna go with Tommy Dreamer. Again, I love Taz's in-ring work. If you're just talking strictly wrestling, I want to Taz any day of the week. But this is ECW, an ECW bracket. And as I said, the first round, there's no one really who puts a stamp on the ECW name than Tommy Dreamer. Someone who kept was loyal to the business, loyal to the company, and stood by Paul Heyman's back, and vice versa. And even though again he wasn't the best wrestler on this list, he was an ECW guy, heart and soul, the heart and soul of ECW. So people loved him like the Sandman, but Tommy Dreamer was the ECW guy. And even I knew that when I was watching the new ECW. You tell like he truly loved the company, the business. So I would have gone Taz if it were against anybody else on this list, but Tommy Dreamer is ECW, so I'm going to go with him. Joel, who do you have, Taz or Tommy Dreamer?
I'm putting Taz. Taz is taking this one from me. Just with him putting the company on his back for the years that everybody was leaving slowly and slowly. And he said, give me the belt, give me the company, I'm going to take you to the promised land. And as pay-per-view went on, bigger and bigger matches, better storylines, he became an animal. I also picked Taz because I like seeing how much ECW meant to him. I saw an interview with him once where he like broke down because he was asking for Paul Heyman's blessing to go to WWF. Asking for this guy's blessing. He's signing the contract. It has nothing to do with Paul, but it shows how much respect he had for Paul and for ECW that he kind of didn't want to leave, but he knew he had to. And just seeing that emotion from him and how much he cared about ECW, I gotta give it to Taz.
Okay, Mike, do the tiebreaker.
I don't want to be the decider
in the hot seat.
God, this could have been the finals. Like this is a very tough one. I gotta go with Tommy Dreamer just for the fact that he went down with the ship. Tommy Dreamer had opportunities to leave. He tells the story that when Raven left to WCW, they wanted to bring in other ECW wrestlers, and Tommy Dreamer was top of the list. He said no. He said no to big money contracts because he believed in ECW, where other people left, and he just continued to go down with the ship. And even when it was writing on the wall, this company's not going to survive, Tommy Dreamer still was like, you know what, fuck it, this is his baby as much as it was Paul's. It's rough because, gosh, like Taz, like you said, did put the company on his back for many years, and I don't think ECW would have survived in their, the body of 97 all the way to like 99 without Taz. But Tommy Dreamer just meant more, in my opinion, to ECW. This is his heart and soul. This was his baby along with Paul. Like you said, when Paul Heyman stopped showing up, Tommy Dreamers just started showing up and just started to book the shows for him instead of saying, hey, the booker's not here, the main guy's not here, I'm not going to show up. He said, fuck it. Like, who's coming to the show? If you want to wrestle, we'll figure it out. And he ran the shows. He went down with the ship. I got to go with Tommy.
Yeah. Good one. I mean, it sucks that Taz had to get eliminated so soon. Not that soon, but it's sad.
Yeah, these are tough. These are tough.
It is very tough.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, I randomized the bracket, so it's not my fault. It wasn't my decision.
I'm always going to blame you, Nick. Don't worry. I'm always going to blame you.
But the next round, Joel, I'm going to start with you this one now. I'm going to put you in the starting off this one. Sandman or Chris Candido? Who is the better ECW wrestler?
I fought on that hill for Chris Candido before. It's just incredible. But I got to go with the Sandman for this one. I mean, you guys kind of said it all last round. You think of ECW, you think of him bashing his head with the beer can. You think of that return in 99 of just his silhouette with the cane. You think of him just caning people. He's just that guy at ECW, and that's why I got put him over Chris Candido. I know it's simple, but it's the Sandman. What more could you say?
Yeah, you think of the stick and you think of Sandman. You don't really think of the weapons. I mean, you kind of do with some people. You think of the sledgehammer with Triple H. You think of the tables. You think of the Dudleys. You know, you can't really say that you can assign a weapon to a superstar. So I'm going to go with Sandman too because of how beloved he was, and all the videos I've seen of him were just, you can tell how passionate and how much everyone respected him. Even till this day, he could just show up by like a random appearance, and then people will go crazy. He was only there for like a couple of seconds, and people went crazy for him. The impact he had on Extreme Wrestling. Did he have a brief? It was me, or did he have a brief run in WWE? I feel like that was like a fever dream. But
who, Sandman?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in the remake of ECW.
The new.
And then he was on Raw for a little bit too. He was almost Vince McMahon's illegitimate child.
Oh man, I forgot about that. Oh my goodness, I forgot he was on Raw.
Yeah, I knew I could seen him somewhere, but I was like, I don't remember when.
The Sandman.
Having Sandman on any show where you get DQ'd for weapon use is a horrible idea.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Like, come on.
Exactly. He's known for the weapons, and he had to do that. Sure. But yeah, for me, again, I said it all in the first round. Just someone who just walks out and you feel the aura on him. You know, again, wasn't the best wrestler out of anyone on this list, but the impact he had, no one could top that. So I'm gonna go with the Sandman. Mike, who do you have, Sandman or Chris Candido?
Yeah, I'm going Sandman for everything that you guys said. Like, oh man, Sandman was ECW in my opinion. It's funny because you said, Nick, that like once you think of like the kendo stick or the Singapore cane, like you think of Sandman. It's like synonymous with him. Like a couple weeks ago on NXT, there was a Singapore cane match, and I could have swore that the Sandman was probably going to pop out somewhere. You know, he's been doing work with WWE lately. He was in the ECW documentary on A&E, and then they got him in the video game. So I was like, shit, is the Sandman going to come out? They have a Singapore match. But yeah, still to this day, he could just show up anywhere at any time, and like it's going to be awesome. People don't care about his age or if he's going to wrestle. Like they just want to see his entrance. Still to this day, his entrance is, you know, a moment in itself. I gotta go with the Sandman for sure.
Yeah, and for someone to recreate the Russian leg sweep with the kendo stick in his hand, yeah, exactly. The great use of the weapon. No one was able to think of that. It's crazy. But yeah, Sandman sweeps Chris Candido. Now it's getting a tough one for me too. We have Sabu versus RVD. Mike, I'm gonna start with you with this one too. What do you think was the better wrestler? It's better than the hot seat start than be put in the hot seat at the end.
True.
Nah, this one is really hard too. You know, two guys who are synonymous with each other. Sabu and RVD trained with each other. They both trained by the original Sheik. This one's tough. I gotta go with Rob Van Dam just for the fact that Sabu, just like Mike Awesome, was in and out at times. You know, he was in ECW. He got fired for no showing an event. Went to WCW for a bit, came back. Then I believe he quit towards the later ends because I remember he was in XPW in like 99, 2000. So RVD, even if Sabu, I'm not even gonna make it because Sabu left. Like even if Sabu sticked around and was there the whole time, I still feel like RVD had more of an impact in ECW, especially with that TV title reign. That TV title reign was absolutely legendary. I have a DVD. It came from highspots.com, right? It's a compilation of all Rob Van Dam's TV title defenses, and it's an 8-disc set.
Wow.
Like, come on, bro. It's an 8-disc set. That's
sick.
insane. There's about 64 matches on there. Like, that's one title reign, 64 matches. And every match he got better and better and better and never even lost the title. He had to relinquish the title due to injury. So Rob Van Dam was like a whole nother level in ECW. I feel like what Sabu was doing in the early days of ECW, Rob Van Dam only topped it. So I got to go with RVD with this. And that's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I'm going to go with RVD. Even though I do stand by what I said before with Sabu being one of the heart and soul of ECW, who continued that kind of style of match throughout his WWE time, and even till this day, he's still going at it. I thought he retired a few years ago, but just be able to get a hip surgery just to go back to doing extreme wrestling, it's insane. But RVD, especially that night where he cashed in the WWE Championship on an ECW show, and then was able to crown both ECW World Championship and the WWE Championship at the same time. He was that guy to cross over between both shows because he had both titles. And you were able to see a lot more people go back and forth. It was mainly WWE guys from what I've seen. We've seen JBL go over there, Batista, Big Show for a bit. All these WWE originals going over there, but it's just the crazy of impact he had on that company to introduce WWE guys to ECW. And again, like I said before, he's the whole effing show. Everywhere he goes, always outperforms. And yeah, just again, I don't want to like a broken record, but the whole effing show, that's the best way I can describe him. There's a reason he's called that because of his in-ring ability. So I'm going to go with RVD. Joel, who do you have, Sabu or RVD?
First of all, shout out High Spots because that 8-disc set he's talking about, I have a 10-disc set of just the Raven versus Tommy Dreamer storyline.
I have that.
Shout out High Spots.
I also have that. I have the Sandman and Raven one as well.
Oh man, I love those disc sets. I got you. I'm gonna let you borrow mine. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
But I'm giving it to RVD. And also I'm gonna bring up the point which we haven't talked about. RVD was also a guy that he was so good at what he did that the fans respected him so much that they never asked for hardcore from him. They knew what he did. They knew his specialty. They respected it. They loved it. And he was one guy that never got a "we want tables" chant or anything like that. That wasn't his style. So I also wanted to bring that up because I feel like that was a tough thing in ECW. Everybody was so hungry for that blood, unless you were in that little group of like the Jerry Lynn's, RVD, Candidos. But to do that and, like you said, have a title reign for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and then they just take it off him because of injury. It wasn't because he lost it. I would still love to know what the original plan was. But just having that long title reign and never having to do anything on the extreme side is so crazy to me, especially in ECW. Like I said, the fans knew what he did, they respected it, and they loved it, and that's also a big part of why I think RVD was like overall impactful in ECW.
Yeah, definitely. And also when he did get extreme, it was some of the most innovative shit I've ever seen. Like the Van Daminator, the Van Terminator.
Oh yeah.
Like he was so innovative. He wasn't just hitting you with a chair, like he was throwing the chair and then hitting you with like a sidekick. So shout out to Bill Alfonso too. Like especially when you talk about Sabu, RVD. Shout out to Bill Alfonso.
And then they would do the frog splash and then do a twist in the air at the same time. Like both of these guys, like I don't know, they probably competed a lot together in a ring, which I want to see those matches. But these two were like so good in the ring.
For sure.
Yeah, I feel bad that Sabu got swept, but like another one that had to be done.
Sabu and Taz both eliminated in the second round is crazy.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Like, this is really rough.
Oh man, I didn't even see the last round. Look at this.
Look at this.
God.
Well, semifinals. My fault.
Yeah, almost last round. We're almost there. We're 3 matches technically, almost done here.
Damn.
First semifinal match, we have Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer. I'll kick this one off. This was a tough one, but I'm gonna have to go with Terry Funk. I still stand by what I said with Tommy Dreamer of how loyal he was to the company. nothing speaks more than being loyal to one and being faithful to somebody. To be able to do everything he's done for that company and to always be by Paul Heyman's back. And like I said, you guys said he booked the show for Paul Heyman. To someone who didn't really want to go to WWE, but again, if you're talking extreme wrestling, aside from the company, you think of Terry Funk. He screams extreme. He has extreme attached to him everywhere he goes. People create hardcore matches to this day in honor of Terry Funk. So the impact of extreme wrestling has to go with Terry Funk on this one. I love Tommy Dreamer, but I know he screams ECW, but so can Terry Funk. He screams ECW and extreme wrestling. So I'm going to have to go with Terry Funk with this round. Mike, who do you have, Terry Funk or Tommy Dreamer?
God, this is really hard.
I hate this one.
Yeah. Tommy Dreamer is the protege of Terry Funk.
I cut you off, but if without Terry Funk, there wouldn't be a lot of these guys. And
no, 100%, 100%. This is going to be hard. This is going to be controversial, but I got to go Tommy Dreamer. And, rest in peace, Terry Funk. I'm a huge Terry Funk fan. I picked him for every other matchup, and they were rough matches like Shane Douglas, Mike Awesome. I still went with Terry Funk. But Terry Funk was there for a good chunk of ECW, but then he left in 97, right? Regardless of how much of an impact he had from 95, 96, 97, Tommy Dreamer kept it going. Tommy Dreamer was the guy who had more intriguing storylines. He was the guy who was there the whole time, even though I say that for every one of Tommy Dreamer's matches here. But yeah, I mean, when Terry Funk was no longer there, Tommy Dreamer was still holding it down, and in honor of Terry Funk too. But I got to go with Tommy Dreamer just for the fact that when you think of the hot years for ECW, the years where ECW was on pay-per-view and got national broadcast television, Terry Funk wasn't there. Tommy Dreamer was the guy in the main events. So I got to go with Tommy. That is fucking hard, though, to go with Tommy over Funk.
Yeah. Valid choices, though. Valid choices.
Oh, man.
Joel.
Yeah.
Break the ice here in the hot seat.
I agree with Mike, man. It's Tommy. Tommy is ECW. Terry Funk, yes. He was there for the early years and really gave the knowledge of pro wrestling to everybody. Kind of like we talked about, if there wasn't Terry, we wouldn't have Tommy. But Tommy carrying that on to the last day and being the guy and putting his blood, sweat, and tears into ECW. And I'm sure he wanted to leave at times. I'm sure it was difficult to work with Paul, especially if you're the top guy, not having the best boss. It's probably pretty tough. So it's probably annoying. So for him to go through all of that, stay till the last day. We talked about him the last days booking the shows because Paul wasn't showing up, and just he was the go-to guy. He was kind of, I guess, the leader of the locker room of ECW. If you think of ECW, that's the first person that pops up. Even though he doesn't have the most title reigns, didn't even want the title at first.
Yeah,
just had to take it because it was basically no one else, Paul, to put the belt on. But stepping up in those roles and doing what he had to do for the company. And that was one example, but that's why I picked Tommy.
Not a bad choice. Not a bad choice. I'm not mad that Terry Funk lost, but I kind of wanted to give it to him just because I didn't want to see him get swept.
Shout out Terry, man.
Yeah,
he made it far.
He did. He tried his best, but yeah. But next semifinal matchup, we have the Sandman going up against RVD. Joel, we're gonna start with you this one.
I'm gonna be real biased right here. RVD, 1,000%, 1,000%. Title reign alone. Like Mike said earlier, the best RVD we had was in ECW when he was able to do whatever he wanted, and he was really pushing the limits. And yeah, it's RVD, man.
Yeah.
What else do I say?
I'm gonna say the same thing. RVD, to be able to make a name for yourself in a stacked company like that, wasn't easy to do. To have Paul Heyman put a lot of faith into you and to be one of the top guys. And again, WWE, he had time in WWE, but that wasn't even the first, not even the second place he had a great run in. TNA was also another great years he had that was better than WWE. Even though it was brief over there. Yeah, RVD is also someone who screams ECW. Sandman again. Everyone loves Sandman. His character is unmatched. If we're just speaking character alone, Sandman would sweep RVD. But in talking of impact with the company, it's got to be RVD in my book. So yeah, Mike, are we clean sweeping here? Or are we going to go Sandman?
Man, I don't want Sandman to get swept, but yeah, I gotta go RVD, man. Like, I feel like overall he had more impact in ECW. So for everything you guys said, it's Rob Van Dam for sure.
Good pick. Now we're up to the finals. We have RVD going up against Tommy Dreamer. Who wants to start this one off? The final one.
You know what? I'll start it off.
Okay.
And you can't use the argument that, hey, well, Tommy Dreamer went down with the chip because so did RVD here.
Yeah.
This one is hard. This one's hard. And as much as Tommy Dreamer is the heart and soul of ECW, and when you think of Tommy Dreamer, when you think of ECW, Rob Van Dam was everything else. He was the body. He was the backbone of ECW. When he calls himself the whole effing show, it was because I was at shows where legit pre-show, before the show starts, you have RVD chants. Middle of the show, during matches that people were really interested in, they were chanting RVD. And then when RVD finally came out, he was the biggest pop of the night. Even though Tommy Dreamer was the heart and soul of ECW, I don't think Tommy Dreamer was ever as popular in ECW as Rob Van Dam was. He was an enigma. It was really... something to witness. Rob Van Dam was the top guy, and he never was world champion. Like, to have a guy who was the top guy and never be world champion, that says a lot about how good he is in the ring and how good he is like as a character. And he was just somebody who people would, you could really get behind, because especially in the time period, the 90s, it was very counterculture with a lot of things that were on TV. And then here's this guy talking about RVD 420 and, all this stuff that you wouldn't see anywhere else. He was definitely groundbreaking. I got to go Rob Van Dam. I feel like the greatest homegrown wrestler ever to come out of ECW was RVD.
Wasn't RVD the champion when he won the WWE championship, or was that not the world championship?
He was. To be honest, right? I don't consider anything from 2006 as real ECW at all.
Okay.
Like, I apologize, but yeah, like, I feel like ECW shut its doors in 2001. Loved ECW One Night Stand, the first one, but after that, it was like, that was...
It was a brand, baby. It was a brand after that. Yep.
The rest was Entertainment Championship Wrestling. If you want to talk extreme, that was the one.
Good point. But I'm going to agree with you here. I mean, RVD is going to win this round anyways. But RVD was always been the fan favorite. Always been one of the best in-ring performers during that time. I've watched videos of every single person on this list, and even no matter where RVD went, his matches and in-ring ability always amazed me. You had Tommy Dreamer, who was a loyal man to the brand, but you saw it and heard RVD everywhere. And his popularity was unmatched for ECW. So I'm going to have to say RVD for this one. Joel, are we going to sweep Tommy Dreamer? Or?
Yeah, it's a sweep. It's a sweep. RVD was the heart and soul of ECW on TV. Tommy Dreamer was the heart and soul of ECW backstage. That's the difference. That's
a great way to put it.
That's the difference. And that's why RVD gets this over Tommy. No disrespect to Tommy. I know that was his ECW's his baby, but RVD, RVD was holding the ship down for a while.
Yeah.
Like Mike said, he was the biggest pop of the night. People paid money to see RVD. Yeah, we came to see ECW, but we're seeing RVD tonight.
True.
It was one of those things.
True. So there we go. We have our winner, RVD, crowned the greatest ECW wrestler of all time.
RVD, baby.
Not a bad bracket.
This was a tough bracket.
This was really tough.
It was.
This is really tough. Wow.
I'm still kicking myself that I kicked out Shane. I didn't even give him a vote.
Yeah,
and that's my guy.
When he did that, I was like, wow.
I surprised myself, Nick.
Yeah, there's a lot of different names too. Like, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Nick, but there's like a lot of different names that were not on this list that also embodied ECW. Cactus Jack, his time in ECW was amazing. The Dudley Boys, you got to think of both Bubba Ray and Devon. Spike even was a big part of ECW. You got to think of guys like New Jack, even though he wasn't the best wrestler. New Jack was.
Oh my god, I didn't even notice. New Jack wasn't even on here. Yeah, wow.
So there's a lot of guys that made ECW what it is. So shout out to everybody else.
Yeah, you could fill a crazy bracket where I know the names that you left off of here and make it more.
We could have done 32.
So don't worry. It's always for part 2. There's always for part 2.
We could do a part 2 with people we didn't have on this list.
Yeah, I'll be back on for that 100%.
For sure. But Mike, we do appreciate you coming on and doing this episode with us.
I appreciate you guys.
Appreciate it? Yeah, we appreciate it. Where can people find the Wrestling Delorean Podcast and follow your platforms?
Yeah, Wrestling Delorean Podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on all audio platforms. We're starting to put up more stuff on YouTube. Just had the interview with Donovan Dijak on YouTube, so check that out. I'm on Instagram at Wrestling Delorean Pod, on TikTok at Wrestling Delorean Pod, and on X at W_Delorean Pod. Almost called it Twitter. I still call it Twitter every episode.
I know, me too.
On X at W_Delorean Pod.
I hate X.
Yeah.
But for sure, we'll definitely include the links to every single social media platform for people to follow you. So
thank you.
For those listening on YouTube, you can go to the description and follow Mike on there and the Wrestling Delorean Podcast. We appreciate you again, Mike, for coming on. My name is Nick. Man. With me is Joel, and we'll see you guys next time.
Catch you.